No, he can go. He's just saying he's just saying whatever you say. That's what he says. Sorry.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. So many flowers. These yellow ones and these purple ones have a nice smell. These two go pretty good. Some of the yellow ones are a little different. The chrysanthemum, they have really good smell. But the roses nowadays, although I heard some breed of roses don't smell anyway. They breed it out. What verse is it today? Chapter 10, right? 16 and 17 because 16. So I'll just read it and then we'll chant the other one. That's the normal, I think. Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 10, verse 16 and 17. Bhuta sargas chatiyas tu tanmatro dravya shaktiman chaturta indriya sargo yastu gana kriyatmaka. The sense perception are created in the third creation, and from these the elements are generated. The fourth creation is the creation of knowledge and of the working capacity. Okay, now number 17. This one has purport, so we'll go with Sad ime. Is that the right verse now? No, that's 18. 16, 17. Vaikariko Devasarga Panchamo Yanmayam Mana Shastas Tu Tamasa Sargo Yastu Adbudi Krita Prabho Vaikariko Devasarga Panchamo Yanmayamana Shastastu Tamasa Sargo Yastva Buddhi Krita Prabho Vaikariko Devasarga Panchamo Yanmayamana Shastastu Tamasaksargo Yastva Buddhi Krita Prabho. Okay, others? Anyone else? Gopal? Okay. Vaikarika, mind, Shasta, sixth, two, but Tamasa of darkness, Sarga, creation, Ya, that which, two, expletive, Abudi, Krita, made foolish, Prabhu, of the master. Translation. The fifth creation is that of the controlling deities by the interaction of the mode of goodness, of which the mind is the sum total. The sixth creation is the ignorant darkness of the living entity by which the master acts as a fool. Can you repeat that one? That's a tricky one. The fifth creation is that of the controlling deities by interaction of the mode of goodness, of which the mind is the sum total. The sixth creation is the ignorant darkness of the living entity by which the master acts as a fool. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It's quite a long purport, so hopefully it'll make it clear. The demigods in the higher planets are called devas because they are all devotees of Lord Vishnu. Vishnu Bhakta Smrito Daiva Asuras Tad Viparyaya is a quote from somewhere. All the devotees of Lord Vishnu are devas or demigods, whereas all others are asura. That is the division of the devas and the asuras. Devas are situated in the mode of goodness, of material nature, whereas the asuras are situated in the mode of passion or ignorance. The demigods, or controlling deities, are entrusted with departmental management of all the different functions of the material world. For example, one of our sense organs, the eye, is controlled by light. Light is distributed by the sun rays, and their controlling deity is the sun. That's a little easy to understand, that we can't see anything without light, right? So it's saying that the light came first, the demigods. So we're thinking, I have good eyesight, or no, I've got some microscope or telescope. We're going to see they're thinking both, right? That by the big enough telescope, they'll see the beginning of everything. And if they get a powerful enough microscope, they'll see the original particle, the God particle, they call it. I read somewhere that originally somebody called it the goddamn particle because they couldn't find it. But that didn't sound so good. So in other words, they're admitting that there's God, but they're thinking that, if they get a small enough microscope, they can find him, or they get a big enough telescope. But they refuse to look in the Veda scriptures. Fools. But this part, that one's easy to understand. We can't see without the sun. In absolute darkness, we can't see. No animal that, there's animals that can see pretty good in the dark. But it's not absolutely dark. If it's absolutely dark, you're not going to see anything. They're just very sensitive to pick up small amount of light or something. And they have night vision goggles for the military people. And they can't see very clearly though, but they can see something. But we need light. So the eye is not so wonderful without the sun. The mind is controlled by the moon. The moon is that Aniruddha, the presiding deity of the mind. I think it's Aniruddha. So the moon, and we know how the moon affects the mind. It even affects the ocean so much. You know, the tides, if you've been living on a seashore somewhere, it's quite incredible how the tides come and go, how far away they go and how far they come back. I saw that in Bali. Sometimes there's, for 100 meters, there's, this much water. And then other times the tide comes and it goes way up on the beach and smashes all the sidewalks and everything. It's on a cycle that, everybody knows when it's going to happen. Then all the ships are stuck in the sand and nobody can go fishing or cruising or anything. And then when the tide comes back, everything floats out. Similarly, when the flood of the Sankirtan movement spreads enough, it'll float everybody, out of Maya, float everybody into something better. All the other senses, both for working and acquiring knowledge, are controlled by different demigods. The demigods are assistants of the Lord in the management of material activities. I don't know who's in charge of the ears and the nose. Anybody ever seen that? But everything we do and perceive and then react to what we perceive is under the control of different demigods. Every little movement we make. But we're thinking I'm independent because we can't see the demigods. So here we get a lot of details, like in the Bible, it just says God created everything. Okay. If you have faith, you can accept that. That's good. But just like anybody created this building, first there's an idea we want a building, and then they think about what they want, and then there's an architect, and then there's the structural engineers, and then finally there's a bunch of sudras putting all the thing together. Right? They couldn't do it otherwise without the plan. And then, but so that much the common man can accept, but then they can't accept that they don't think about where did the sand and all those things come from, like Prabhupada told one man. So you're stealing from God, from Krishna, because you're making glass, I think it was. They said, where do you get the sand? And you're stealing from Krishna. So everything, all the bricks and, all the cement, everything is ultimately coming from Krishna. It has to be supplied. It's not just coming from Lowe's. I guess that's what we talk about now if you go shopping, right? Or from much bigger things, in a big construction. Like we saw across the street, they're bringing in huge trucks full of everything. And cement trucks and big things to blow it up. But all that's coming from Krishna. All our ability, I am the ability in man, I am the sound and ether. Krishna gives us that nature. People are admiring the abilities of people. Someone is a good dancer, someone is a good athlete. They're fascinated. But that ability is Krishna. They're really seeing Krishna. They don't recognize Krishna is really doing everything. But he gives different living entities the different abilities. And he gives them credit. He gave Arjuna credit. So if someone has these talents, they have these abilities, they have this wealth, they have beauty, They have skills. If they use it for Krishna, it's glorious, even if it's very small. But if someone has great opulences, but they don't use it for Krishna, then it's all useless. It's actually a heavy burden, on their head. Like, who's that? Jagannath Das Babaji, he gave that man his rupee back. He said, it's too heavy for me. He said, I don't know how you can manage to have so many rupees. So that, he didn't mean that it's physically too heavy to carry, but it's too heavy, the idea, what do I do with it? And all the different allurements that are available if we have opulences, what we can do with it. So, but if one is channeled, is giving everything to Krishna, using whatever he has for Krishna. But I was just, devotee asked me just this class I was just now. It was a sloka from first canto about Maharaj Pariksit and the sages at Naimisharanya. And over again, it was saying how, they couldn't be satiated. And Prabhupada, not only Prabhupada, the verses, so much saying how the obligation to spread the holy name and there's no other way and all these things. And anyway, he asked, like, we get discouraged at, we're trying to preach, we don't have enough facility or something, and then we're not getting results, and then we get discouraged. Why is that? Navina, why is that? Huh? Somebody thinks I need more facility before I can preach. I had told how Prabhupada started with absolutely nothing. So that, we think, well, we're not Prabhupada, so, we get bewildered thinking first I have to have all this facility, then I can preach. What do you think? Yeah. I mentioned there's one of the most famous Christian preachers, and his books are all over the place and millions. The purpose of life. He says, your purpose of life is to spread the glories of the Lord. And whatever he's given you, that's perfect for you. So just spread the glories of the Lord, quite in our line. Prabhupada said that too. Just, anyone can chant Hare Krishna. Anyone can say to someone, please chant. Prabhupada did that. He showed us. He didn't, Prabhupada, that was the thing. He never just sat on a big, high seat and said what you should do. He did it all before, so that he could show that how, and devotees did it. This movement, huge movement built by, devotees in the beginning, they'd say, Prabhupada, but we don't know. If we spread to Krishna will help you. Just try. Right? So if we take shelter of Krishna, then anything can happen. After the creation of the demigods, all entities are covered by the darkness of ignorance. I think we heard that from you a few days ago, how the ignorance has to be there so we can live in the material world. Otherwise, we couldn't live here. So that's one of the first things that Brahma had to create. Each and every living being in the material world is conditioned by his mentality of lording it over the resources of the material nature. That's in the Bhagavad Gita. That was it, the last verse in chapter 8, or that the two causes, of fall down, or the dirt, the weakness of heart. We think everything is mine, and then we want to lord it over. We want to lord it over whatever we have. Although a living entity is the master of the material world, he is conditioned by ignorance, by this false impression of being the proprietor of the material things. It is I and it is mine. Those who are in Maya always speak nonsense, right? It's in second canto, beginning with Mamoham Ahamameti. It is I and it is mine. Anybody read Shamasundar's book when he first met all the Beatles? George called him up and said, come, I want you to meet everybody. And they were in the recording, a movie set, making that movie. I can't remember which movie it was, but so they were recording a song by George, I, me, mine. You ever heard that one? I, me, mine, I, me, mine. All I hear is I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine. So he said the other Beatles thought, this is a really stupid song. What is it all about, you know? And then they had a break and they asked Shamasundar, like, what's this all about? What's this Hare Krishna all about? And then when he explained this concept of I, me, mine, and everything is mine, and how that's illusion and nothing but, they liked it. Then they understood the song. So George was highly influenced by, by Prabhupada's teachings and by, obviously read the books. Yesterday I met two people, and they both, they talked about George Harrison, and they both said, oh, within you, without you, that's the greatest song ever. That's I don't remember the song, but I just looked it up. I can read a little bit of it when I finish this purport. It was all coming from Prabhupada's teachings, and it influenced people so much. So then they're buying Prabhupada's books. The energy of the Lord, called avidya, that's ignorance, is the bewildering factor of the conditioned souls. The material nature is called avidya, or ignorance. But to the devotees of the Lord engaged in pure devotional service, this energy becomes vidya, or pure knowledge. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The energy of the Lord transforms from Mahamaya to Yogamaya and appears to pure devotees in her real feature. For those who forget Krishna, it transfers from Yogamaya to Mahamaya. If you serve Krishna, it changes, because Mahamaya is a servant of Yogamaya. So then she lets us go. The material nature, therefore, appears to function in three phases: as the creative principle of the material world, as ignorance, and of knowledge. As disclosed in the previous verse, in the fourth creation, the power of knowledge is also created. The conditioned souls are not originally fools, but by the influence of the avidya function of material nature, they are made fools, and thus they are unable to utilize knowledge in the proper channel. So again, this is another way Prabhupada saying that, we were something else of it originally, not fools. We were intelligent. We were serving Krishna. So ignorance is created, also knowledge is created. By the influence of darkness, the conditioned soul forgets his relationship with the Supreme Lord and is overwhelmed by attachment, hatred, pride, ignorance, and false identification, the five kinds of illusion that cause material bondage. Om Gana Timirandasya Dinanjana Shilakaya Chaksuramili Tanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tushe Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. So by the influence of ignorance, we forget Krishna. Then we become overwhelmed. These are the 5 kinds of illusion that cause material bondage. Attachment, hatred, pride, ignorance, and false identification. They all kind of go together. So hatred, we see a lot of campaigns to stop hatred. I haven't seen it lately. For a long time on the corner up there was that sign, Stop Asian Hatred, right? That came about because of the Chinese virus. So for a while, nobody would eat in Chinese restaurants. But all kinds of hatred, envy in Sanskrit, dvesha, it means hatred and envy. Envious of someone and you hate them. They have what I want. And then pride, that's false pride. Dumbo, Darpa, Bhimanina, this is symptoms of the demon. They're proud. I'm this body, I am rich, I'm beautiful, I'm American, or I'm, whatever country I come from, taught that that's better than other ones. Attachment to material things. So to counteract, we have to become attached to Krishna. Yesterday, one boy was very serious, and he said, "What do you have to get over addictions?" You have to get better addicted to something good. He agreed with that. It didn't sound like he had like heavy, serious addictions, but he took the Gita. He took faith in, so hopefully we'll meet us again. And become attached to Krishna. Then we can be detached from the material desires. Not only just things, but just the imaginations and the desires and the dreams and all this. And everywhere is somebody trying to encourage everybody to be attached, to develop attachments, to get more things, to, enjoy the mature world. And Maya is very tricky and keeps convincing them. We know you failed so many times. Next time it's going to work. 5 kinds of illusion and false identification. The false ego. I'm this body. That's the basic false identification. And this body is young or old or beautiful or ugly or big or small or fat or skinny or American or Indian or Ghanaian, what is it? Guyanian, or Guyanese, and so many different types of bodies. And everybody's quite caught up in it, that those who preached amongst Indians find out it's not just Indian, right? They divide themselves up so much. And in Africa, they have so many tribes, and they're also, each one is thinking that their tribe is much better than the other tribes. So the government's trying to push that, like especially in Nigeria, we're Nigerians. You're Nigerian, you're not Igbo, or you're not Yoruba, you're not Hausa, you're Nigerians. But they all have their native language, so it's very hard to forget that. At home, everybody speaks their tribal language, and outside, everybody speaks English. But so that's a beginning, nationalism, but then that's also dangerous, because then you become proud of that. The only real cure is, that understand Krishna, know Krishna is in everyone's heart, and he's in our heart, so that we can develop real love. So because two people, were glorifying this song, Within You, Without You, George says, people who hide themselves behind a wall of illusion never glimpse the truth. Then it's too late when they pass away. Obviously he was quite influenced. We're talking about the love we could all share when we find it to our best and hold it. Try to realize it's all within yourself. No one else can make you change. And to see you're really only very small, and life flows on within you and without you. We're talking about the love that's gone so cold. People who gain the world and lose their soul, they don't know, they can't see. Are you one of them? When you've seen beyond yourself, peace of mind. So that's a famous from the Bible. What benefits a man if he gains the whole world, but he loses his eternal soul? And it's also, where is that in the Bhagavatam? There's a very similar verse. First canto. Yeah, the basic idea, I think Narada Muni is speaking it, but you gain everything, but you materially, you never be satisfied. You lose your soul. For myself in my life, when I guess I would be called a seeker. At least I was lost. I was trying to find something, and I couldn't find anything. And I was traveling around America. I was driving across Arizona or someplace where it's all desert. There's like nothing, except just cactus. I like those cactus. I thought that's, thorny. It keeps people away. So anyway, there was a big signboard, a really big one. It was the only one for miles and miles, and it had that verse from the Bible, what profit a man if he gains the whole world, but he loses his entire soul. And it really hit me. It made me really start thinking. And not too long after that, I met devotees. So, but even devotees get caught up trying to gain the world, and Prabhupada claims that he tried to do that, before that he tried to get money first. But we can hopefully understand that everything Prabhupada did was to teach us by example. He was saying, well, I saw my godbrothers begging, and and I thought first, he was already in business and he was supposedly destined to get rich. So I thought first I'll get rich And then I'll be able to do so many things. And I saw that in our movement quite a few times, and it never worked. You know, they came up with so many scams to make money, right? I mean, you're involved in one of them. And they end up in big debt. They end up in big debts, you know. I saw one of our leaders that I was involved with. If we get this money, then we can build a big temple, so we can do this. But they end up driving, devotees go crazy and, you know, thinking, what's the next way to trick people and make money, and forget to preach. So the point is just whatever you have, you know, use it to spread the holy name. Some think, well, you know, we can't do Harinam because we don't have, you know, Indradumna's party here, and we don't have all these superstars. Can't have a kirtan festival until we get all the superstars. No, just chant the holy name, because it's the holy name which ultimately is going to change people's hearts. So one person can chant. The first Harinam I saw was one devotee. And it blew my mind completely. I said, that's it. That's what I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but there it was. One Narada Muni still in the Lacha. He was chanting so intensely and, you know, playing his cartels in front of the campus. And so then later in the day, I went by the same place, and there was another devotee, but he was, Narada Muni is short and plump, and this guy was tall and skinny and jumping and dancing. And then I was really fully convinced just by that. So everybody, we just use whatever we have, you know. If you distributed 10 million books, or you distributed one book in your whole life, you don't know what the result is going to be. Like Mahot Saha, he first just got one of those on chanting, right? That's what I heard. That one devotee on the Harinam in the Union Square, he gave him the on chanting. He said, okay, I'll read this. And then the next thing we know, he read everything. So we don't know. We have to have faith. Just use it all for Krishna. People are so busy looking outside. They're like that musketeer. You know, the smell is coming out of their own navel, but they go mad trying to find the source of that smell. Sometimes they fall out. They're running like they go mad, trying to find where is that wonderful smell coming from. But it's just coming from them. So we're looking for pleasure. That's the nature of the soul. And people are so mad after finding something from, you know, often in completely tamasic places in the dark, you know, or trying to put themselves into darkness so they can't see all the misery around them. So devotees are obliged to just utilize whatever we have to give them. We need temples everywhere. We need small temples, big temples, you know. We need home programs. We need Harinam parties. New York City should have hundreds of Harinam parties, right? Such a big place. There's so many street corners. But even people just see a devotee, we go around, if they see tilak, they get purified. They think of Krishna. I went to the bank the other day. It happens to be the temple bank. And it was Krishna arrangement. The guy I was supposed to meet, he had some emergency and he wasn't there. And I met the other guy who happens to be the one that Hans always meets. And he was quite fascinated. And then I went again yesterday. He said, oh, you know, he parks his car in front of the temple. That's how we got. And he'd never come in before. And he came in, he was all excited. Oh, I met the receptionist. She was so nice. Started thinking of Krishna more and more. So whatever we do, we just, if the people know we're Hare Krishnas, so much benefit is there. So let's take room for somebody else to speak. A few minutes. All this stuff about yesterday, Dr. Heinrich asked me, why do we have to know this? All this stuff about the demigods. Like yesterday, you're giving or Thursday, so many details. And he asked, why do we have to know this? I thought about it also. Actually, Prickett asked in detail about all those things in the early part of the second canto of the questions. It's quite shocking when I read it. I'd read it before, but when I read it recently, how he asked about every detail. That's why Sukadev spoke it all. Yeah. Yes, sir. Everybody's running out. Where are you going? Huh? Another class. All right. Good. Yeah, I've got one at 10:30. There's a one-on-one. It's the Zoom, the COVID thing was good for that we connected devotees. Like in Africa, I was the only one that ever went there. A few others stopped by for 1 or 2 days. West Africa. South Africa, because devotees go there. Sannyasis all go there. It's lucrative. West Africa, they ask you for money. They've always got something they need money for. But now they started a Zoom thing, and they're getting everybody in the world. They're getting so many. So they're getting association, much beyond their borders because they can't afford to travel or anything. And Achyuta Gopi, she was saying how you couldn't go to the temple. So this is, we're getting some sense of what it feels of feelings of separation. So like today there's a home program. The first time in a couple of years, it was 2-3 weeks ago, they started the program again at 26 Second Avenue. 2-3 years, 2 years, more than 2 years, they didn't have anything. It's too bad, but hopefully it makes us want them. They were having online, but still, that place, like Chelsea went there for the Russian program on Sunday, and he said, "Oh, I got a chance to chant in that holy sacred place." I didn't realize what the significance of that. I remember when I was in high school, we were in Florida, and we went to Ernest Hemingway's house or something, and I would I really liked his writing, and I was like, "Oh." But then Ram Roy took us around to all the places where Prabhupada stayed in New York and the early days, and that was much more significant to be awestruck about that. There's still more. He didn't show us everything, but so the 26 Second Avenue, where that's where it really started, really took off. It's quite an amazing place. We have to think about getting possession of that place so it can stay. Anyway, there's so much here, and Prabhupada, bless so many places. But there's so many places where devotees haven't even been yet. And we need to not only go, of course, the internet is reaching out to so many, many people. But we want to still also get, personal association advantage. Now it's quite pleasant to go out and be able to see people's faces And, we don't have to hide our faces anymore. So, but we have to have a good face, that's always chanting Hare Krishna. So any question or comment? We got a couple minutes and we can stop early. Good question. Why did Giriraj Swami, why did Brahma create ignorance? Why didn't he just make everything nice? Create ignorance and fear of death and all these things. Because we want it. And when Giriraj, the first time he was able to ask Prabhupada a question, he said, why did Krishna create the material world? And what did Prabhupada say? He didn't, you did. You created it. Your desire. There's some soul, somehow had the desire for this place of ignorance and darkness where I can be the Lord over, I can think everything belongs to me and be proud of, and, nowadays, I guess it's always been like Hiranyakasipu, he took possession of everything. So there's lots of little Hiranyakasipus now. They're the same mentality. They're not so powerful, but they become very powerful and they influence the world in many ways, and driving people crazy to advertising. The men who invented advertising, and then they give you credit, to buy things. They say the advertising is to make you buy things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people who don't care. But it works. So people are just going crazy and borrowing against borrowing, borrowing and borrowing against borrowing, and thinking that, by dressing up. And anyway, there are still people looking for Krishna. Everybody's looking for Krishna. Some people realize it. And yesterday, also another interesting thing on the Harinam, right across from us, and a little bit over, was a big display. They never went to the moon. This guy had a big signboard with pictures how it's impossible to go to the moon. And he was getting a big crowd, actually. He always had a few people listening to his lectures. So that's not only that's crazy Hare Krishnas say that. Prabhupada, he said different things, but the bottom line is, even if they did go, what's the use of it? Except to say I went there. It's like somebody climbs Mount Everest. They asked the first guy, he said, why did you climb? He said, because it's there. What can you do when you get there? You just have to come down again, right? But when you get to Krishna, when you get to Goloka, you can stay and you can live eternally blissful and knowledgeable. All these other material accomplishments, if you go to the moon, if you go to Mars, you can't stay there. And whether we can even go there, that's a good question. But you can go to Krishna. People might not believe it because they don't believe. But we hear enough about Krishna and we associate with devotees and we chant already. Krishna will reveal himself as he's doing with so many people. Gopal, any comments? Questions? Microphone. Until 9, and now it's 3 minutes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So you were mentioning about how people appreciate the knowledge and the books being out there, or people find out somehow. So yesterday we were at Stony Brook University distributing books, and I showed this one boy the Bhagavad Gita, and right away he lit up and he said, "Yeah, the Bhagavad Gita, yeah, that one scientist, right? That's my favorite." He said that one scientist, right? That's my favorite line. He talks about when time I am the destroyer of all things. So he took a Bhagavad Gita happily.
He'd already heard it or something?
He had heard that, that being quoted, Oppenheimer, the quote from when the atomic bomb went off.
Yeah, it was like millions of suns going on.
So he knew it was the Bhagavad Gita. So as soon as he saw it, he said, "Wow, yeah, I know this one quote from it." So he said the quote, and then he took the book.
Good. All right. Thank you. So today's a big day for associating with lots of people, like-minded people, right? The punk rockers or the hardcore people. Prasadam, books, home program. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. And getting out of ignorance ki jai. Maya is darkness and Krishna is light. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. So it's not easy to know Krishna by the Vedas. What's that verse in the Brahma Samhita? Durlabhama, Durlabhama, Atma Bhakta. What's the first part? Huh? What is it? Right. Yeah. By studying the Vedas, it's not easy to find Krishna. It's difficult because too many other distractions, too many flowery words, But by bhakti, it's easy because Krishna reveals himself. It's there in the Vedas, but it's not. That's why Narada Muni criticized Vyas, because you've given all these other distractions what people want, how to enjoy the mature world, but you haven't given enough direct, bhakti. And Dharma Project Kaita Votra Nirmatsarana right away kicks out all religion that is materially motivated. Doesn't kick out a particular sampradaya, kicks out the motivation. If you're motivated for material gain, then Bhagavatam rejects that. Surrender to Krishna, give it up. Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj.
Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Hari Hari Vipale Janamayanu Manusya Manu.